And if I didn't ask for help, I have my accountants, my attorneys, my bankers, and all that. I go into business like a rugby team. Boom, boom, and we kick butt. But the average guy is standing there. Oh, I'm an A student. I'm going to do this all on myself. And a bunch of rugby players run you over. And you go, well, they're not playing fair. You know what? You're playing stupid. You should have a team. You should have accountants, attorneys, and bankers, and all that stuff. But that's not the game I want to play. I said, then don't play the game. The game of business is played with accountants, attorneys, bankers. I hate to say it, politicians. You got to know the game.
Like, I don't want to hustle. I want to prosper. I don't want to grind. I want to create a machine that monetizes. I'm not shameful of money. I want money. I want a lot of money. I want to give money away. I want to raise a lot of money. You can't do that if you're broke.
Most of the people watching this thing should eat because of what other people are going to say. You have no idea how limitless it is when you're not afraid of what other people think or say. You have no idea. There's not two people watching this thing that even has a concept of what it is to act as if you have no limits to your abilities. Zero. But you have to do something every day that scares you. And that's a takeoff from Helen Keller, who said, she was deaf, dumb, everything. She couldn't do anything. And she said every day she did something to scare herself. Well, if you and I had all those afflictions, just getting out of bed would be scary enough. And so I decided that one of the differentiations between the people that got the most out of the week-long seminar and the year-long free mentoring from me is people that really press themselves hard. So I translated that into they've got to do something and listed what they did to scare themselves every single day.
Is that the essence of really what you do, is getting people to take more risk, to get out of their comfort zones, and then the wealth comes later?
It's not just out of their comfort zones. It's to change your reality. Okay, your reality is different than my reality. And, your followers' realities are all different. But it's to change your reality. And to make yourself accountable. That's not just getting outside your comfort zone, making yourself accountable. Okay? Not just accountable, not accountable to somebody else. Accountable to you, me, yourself. Because that's the ultimately, that's the only person you should be accountable to, is yourself. And we grow up, in my judgment, wrongly, that we don't hold ourselves accountable enough. We just don't. We've learned to come up with reasons why we can't do this, reasons why it's okay not to do this, reasons why you didn't follow up on time, reasons why I told the guy to get back to him by Wednesday. It's now Friday. Oh, it's the weekend. I'll now get back to him on Monday. And life has gotten simpler now. With the internet and with email and the things where the communication is almost instant, do you think it should be easier? But it's not. I use the analogy. 25, 30 years ago, you go in to buy a $100 million company, your due diligence would be 3, 4, 5 weeks, and it'd take you 3, 4, 5 weeks to close the deal. Okay, a month and a half, 6 to 8 weeks. With the internet, it should take less time because the information is instantaneous. It takes us twice as long to close a deal now. Twice as long. There's no reason for that. Things haven't gotten twice as complicated, but somebody has to put their name on the line. Somebody wants to push off the accountability. Somebody would rather have Brian sign off on it, so I go home early on a Thursday knowing you're going to come in early on a Monday and your signature will be on the document instead of mine because I don't want to be accountable. And so the kids today have this need. It's like this thirst for guidance. And the kids do better in the year-long mentor program than the older kids. So the kids in their teens and 20s do better than the guys in their 40s and 50s. That's because the guys in their 40s and 50s got a lot of baggage.
Bad habits,
and it's tough to get rid of them. And the, motivation gets you started. good habits keep you going. Most people just have piss poor habits. And, I've had these same habits for about 50 years now. Okay? About 50 years. And I don't even think about it. I mean, it's just like brushing my teeth, taking a shower. I just do it. And one of the other interviews that I did with you, I said, when I do feel wimpish, which isn't too often, I just say, come on. And I just go out and do it. And I do that about my entire life. Everything about it. And I know that if I hadn't built up these habits 20, 30 years ago, at age 70, I certainly wouldn't be doing this. I don't fail very often. I do fail.
You're pretty open about all the failures.
Yeah, I'm not ashamed of them.
Right.
That's what's made me who I am.
You said failure is just testing.
Correct. It's just testing. And I don't know, and I'm quick to pull the trigger two ways. I'm quick to pull the trigger and trying something, and I'm quick to pull the trigger and closing something. Just turn the key.
What does that mean, turn the key?
Turn the key means close the fucking business. Most of the people watching this thing should either not be in business if they've got one, or close the fucker down if they got one. Because you got in business for all the wrong reasons, and you don't have the balls to close them down because of what other people are going to say. You have no idea how limitless it is when you're not afraid of what other people think or say. You have no idea. There's not two people watching this thing that even has a concept of what it is to act as if you have no limits to your abilities. Zero. Lack of self-esteem, lack of self-worth. Now, they think they have self-worth. They think because they made a few bucks. But in actuality, and when they measure it against the other 8, 10, 12 people sitting around the table, they realize, or they start to question, hell, maybe I was just lucky. Now, all of us, when you're only a one-trick guy or gal, think, was I lucky? Now, I've done it so many times, I know I wasn't lucky. I might have been lucky the first time, but I haven't been lucky the 15, 20, 40, 50. I know that.
Okay.
But maybe I was lucky the first time. But my life changed when I was pretty much a haphazard kid, got in a lot of trouble, got arrested 4 or 5 times, thrown in jail. And this was when my dad's a cop. But then I volunteered for the draft in 1966 at the height of the Vietnam War. And I went to OCS, and that changed my life because it was the really first real high performance thing that I could measure myself against with other people. 2/3 of all Fortune 500 CEOs have one thing in common: military background.
Really?
2/3 of those 2/3 have something else: martial arts. What do you learn in martial arts, Brian? Discipline, focus. A lot of people don't believe they deserve to be there. I convince them, and we have these drills, why you belong there. A lot of people that come there, with money, that have made money, think they made it by accident.
Right.
I just had one of my superstars who's made $100 million tell me in the last week, I'm not sure I'm going to have another lucky accident. And I said, you did it. I mean, you tried a lot of things. I believe Thomas Edison, I wouldn't have done it 10,000 times.
Okay.
I would have hired an engineer from MIT to do it. But I mean, I've tried a lot of things. Nobody's failed at more things than I have. And the first 100 million are successes, but I could write a book about failures that'd be, because I've tried a lot of different things. Because failure is just testing. And one of the reasons I've been so successful in generating this equity and value in my kids, and I call you all kids, is because I convince them that making a mistake is okay. Your parents probably told you, you can be anything you want. But you can't. That's horseshit. You can't. If it's all juxtaposed. But what you tell them is that you can do anything you want that you have passion for. Because that eliminates most of the crap. Because most people don't follow their dream. Like they say in The Sound of Music, you can't have a dream come true unless you have a dream. Now, I still dream, I dream in Technicolor. I say my affirmations and goals every single night. It's bloody hard to be a high-performance person.
What is your methodology on leadership? What is your methodology on culture? What is your methodology on sales? What is your methodology on teamwork? We can go to a Super Bowl party and we miss the real lesson. You can be down 28-3. But if you have a methodology, your teammates won't panic. If you have a methodology, your teammates won't quit. When you have a methodology, whether you're winning or losing, regardless of the score, if you got a methodology, it's the only way that you can win.
Patriots win the Super Bowl.
Your next level is attainable. Your next level is a tangible place. Your next level is up to you, but your next level is about you creating, adopting, or learning methodologies for everything. Now, can I be honest with you? Divorce in America is about 50%. The only thing that happens in relationships, we date. We go to movies, we put on cologne and perfume, we actually comb our hair, we open up the door. We got one methodology to get her. We got one methodology to get him. And then we get married. And what happens? We change our methodology. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been married 23 years, and men, I want you to hear me closely. I have methodology, and here's my philosophy. It's cheaper to keep her. So as a result, I try my best to behave the exact same way I behaved when we dated as I do 23 years later. Try it. I promise you, it'll work. All right, lesson number one. If you want to be successful in business, lesson number one, cut off the news. The media's job is not to tell us the truth. The media's job is to make money. The media has figured out that America is addicted to negative information. So every night at 6, when you cut off the news, do you ever turn to your wife, husband, significant other and say, honey, I feel real good about America? When's the last time you said that? When you cut off the news, you're angry, you're sad, you're frustrated. Some people are actually scared. I kick my competition's butt because I don't watch the news. One methodology I want to teach you today is what I use to close deals. And I almost never hear the word no. See, my marketing methodology is called the mousetrap. My job is to simply catch mice. In this context, mice are meeting planners, people who plan meetings. So in order to build a good mousetrap, you got to figure out some good cheese. You got to build a good mousetrap, which begins with cheese. Here's my cheese. Every meeting planner wants a speaker who's entertaining and dynamic and gives the audience great information. That's my cheese. So all my marketing materials says I'm very entertaining and dynamic. And I give great information. But once you got somebody nibbling on your cheese, I come in with the close, and it's fast, it's strong, and it's swift. Because every meeting planner wants an entertaining and dynamic speaker who gives great information. That's what they're looking for, and I know it. So can I ask you a question? What are your customers looking for? Don't think like you, think like a customer. See, your closing mechanism always needs to be connected to a promise. People buy promises. I got a coaching program, and I teach all my business leaders all my methodologies, and I just gave you one for free. Karen, I didn't go too deep, as deep as I could go. Can you do me a favor? Go back and build a mousetrap. Make sure you got some good cheese. But what is your closing mechanism? Everyone loves a promise. I'll be the best motivational speaker your group's ever had. You guys know I almost never hear the word no. I'll be the best speaker your group's ever had. It's really hard to say no to that. Would you agree? One of the best ways you can build a marketing methodology is stop thinking like you and start thinking like your customers. What has made me a multimillionaire, I'm going to reveal to you right now. And I can prove it to you. The superstars that you're looking for are on the tip of my tongue. Well, what did we think? Did we like them? The likability factor is the best kept secret in business. Hire for attitude, train for skill. Hire for attitude, train for skill. Hire for attitude, train for skill. The superstars you are looking for in any service-based industry are likable people, and I can prove it to you. Have you ever wondered why and how Oprah became a billionaire? Oprah convinced 30 million women and about 1 million men that she was their best friend. And every afternoon, those 31 million people would tune in to their best friend. Oprah converted the likability factor into money. Is everybody with me? If you don't have a methodology, you're going to have rebellious people spark every now and then. Am I right or wrong? If you don't have a methodology, you're going to have people go off the reservation every now and then. Am I right or wrong? So if you don't have a methodology and you got people doing dumb stuff, that's their fault. That's your fault. Did we like them? If the answer is what that really mean? Next. Have you guys ever paid attention to the greatest salesman on this earth? See, I pay attention. They call me a thought leader, so I'm always thinking. The greatest salesmen on this earth are not business people. They're a bunch of girls 4 feet tall. Who am I talking about? The Girl Scouts, man. You will bounce a check before you turn a Girl Scout away. You will buy more cookies, even if you got cookies in the house, am I right or wrong? And let's be honest, those cookies aren't that freaking good. Those little girls are sales assassins. It's hard to say no to a Girl Scout. It's like emotional. And here's why. We've all heard the term before, but we don't execute it. People want to buy from people they know, people they like, people they trust. Have you heard that before? But yet, do you execute that methodology? We know Girl Scouts. We like Girl Scouts. And we trust Girl Scouts. It's hard to say no when you have the trifecta. If you're ready to go to that next level and install methodology, say,
I would teach you how to think correctly.
The largest gap between successful and unsuccessful people in life is the thinking gap. I'm not talking about being smart. I'm not talking about an IQ. I'm talking about how you think, how I think. Successful people think differently than unsuccessful people. Wise thinking leads to right living. Stupid thinking leads to wrong living. If you want to have a fulfilled life, you have to fill your mind correctly. Right now, you need to focus on today. And what I realized so many leaders don't understand is that truly today matters. And we overestimate what we can do tomorrow. We over-exaggerate what we did yesterday, but we underestimate what we can do right now. The only time you have, the only time I have, is now. So the question for all of us is, what am I doing with now? The great leaders, they're present in the moment, and because of that, they maximize the moment. So if you're tempted to take that faraway glance, well, glance. But get right back to the present moment. Because today you're preparing to make tomorrow a success. Well, we all want to be motivated, and yet so many times we fail to find the secret of motivation, and so let me give it to you quickly. Just do it. Motivation is not the cause of action, it's the byproduct of action. There's a lot of difference. If I think motivation is the cause of my action, then I'm going to wait to be motivated before I do something. But if I realize it's the byproduct of my action, then I'll start doing something. And then guess what? Motivation will come up and zap you, and all of a sudden you feel good and you're glad you're doing it. And you're saying, wow, this is truly wonderful. So let it be the byproduct you like. Don't let it be the foundation for the actions that you take in your life. Nothing comes to you until you commit yourself. Nothing comes to you if you're just going to try, but you're not committed. Nothing comes to you if you're just thinking about it. It's not until you take the action step. It's not until you take the direction do the things start to flow through you. But I'm saying don't cheat yourself out of the possibility of the potential that's on the other side of commitment. Stay with it long enough to find out if there's any fruit in it. You can do goal setting with a pencil, but you have to do goal getting with your legs. You got to take action. And it's the action that separates us. The greatest gap in this world is the gap between knowing and doing. Knowing is goal setting. Doing, now that's goal achievement. People that are knowledgeable about habits say that it takes 30 days for a habit to become a habit. Now, habits can be good, habits can be bad. So over a period of time, you can either be developing habits that are going to help you, or you can be developing habits that are going to hurt you. People that grow develop habits that help you. The great value of a good habit is you don't have to think about it. That's why it's a habit. In other words, once you begin to, over days and times and periods, begin to practice something that's good, after a while, it becomes automatic to you. It becomes who you are. In fact, I always tell people, practice a good habit long enough to make it yours. And once it's yours, now it's automatic. Every day, you'll do what you should do. Often I have the expression that everything worthwhile is uphill. That's a fact. You've never heard someone talk about accidental achievements. You've never heard someone that got to the top of the mountain and somebody asked them, how did you get there? Kind of look confused and say, I have no idea. They know how they got there. The reason they know how they got there is because they had to walk all the way up the mountain. Nobody lifted them. There were no shortcuts. There's not an elevator. There's not an escalator. It's all effort that gets you to the top of the mountain. What I want you to understand is that inspiration does a lot better when it's coupled with perspiration. There are a whole lot of people, they want to be inspired in great things, but they don't want to do the hard work to achieve those great things. It's not either or, it's both and. So I really trust today that you will just kind of roll up your sleeves, look at something you haven't tackled for a while, dive in. You'll be amazed that once after you do the work, you get inspired. Don't wait to get inspired before you do the work.
The most obsolete idea is go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, get out of debt, and invest for the long term in the stock market. See, why would you save money when they're printing trillions of dollars? The gap between the 1% and 99% is massive. You see, it's not just money. You have to step back and look at the bigger picture.
So what do you do?
In every one of us is a poor person. There's still a poor person inside me. There's also a middle class person. And the middle class persons want security. They want that steady paycheck. And there's a rich person. And they're all inside of us, except that it's not taught. You're taught to go to school, get a job, and get a paycheck. You're not taught how to get rich. If you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, my rich dad refused to pay me. He said the paycheck was one of the most damaging things you could take in your life. He says the moment you take a paycheck, you're an employee. And that's the mindset. So my rich dad never paid me. It drove my poor dad, government employee, nuts. You got to pay people. You got to pay people. And Rich Dad was not saying that the paycheck was bad. He says he didn't want to be a slave to money. So as an entrepreneur, if Rich Dad folded, I just started another company. I don't need a paycheck. I don't need anybody to take care of me. If my government doesn't like me, I move to another country because they need entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So the entrepreneur is not so much the business. The entrepreneur is really the mindset and the skill sets and the different set of rules. You see, I don't operate, small business does not operate in the same rules as big business. Entrepreneur is a mindset first, a skill set, and rules. And depending upon whether you're an employee or a small business, the rules are different. The mindsets are different. The skill sets are different.
You could say one thing to somebody who's never been an entrepreneur and they're thinking about making the leap of faith into becoming an entrepreneur. What could you tell them?
Well, I'll just tell them the same thing that happened to me. My last paycheck, I still remember it clearly. It was one of the worst and the best days of my life. And I was in Puerto Rico. I was working for Xerox. And my boss gave me my last, it wasn't a paycheck, it was a bonus check. I think it was about $30,000. Taxable, that's the only problem with that. So I got this check and I went, holy mackerel. So I was excited, but I was also disturbed. And so this other guy comes up to me, his name was John. And John says to me, he says, you're going to be back. I said, why? He says, because you're going to fail. I looked at him and said, look, few expletive words, because that's what he did. He left Xerox, failed, and he came back. And I said, look, you failed and you came back, but I'm going to fail and I'm never coming back. And that's the attitude. Do you know what I mean? If you say, well, if I fail, I'll go back to mommy and daddy, then that's what you'll do. So if you fail, that's when I became an entrepreneur, because I had no money. I had no money for years. I didn't have a paycheck. But that's what my rich dad encouraged me to do. He says, when you don't have this paycheck, you get hungrier, smarter, and it's a test of your character. Will you become a crook? Will you become dishonest? Will you cheat and steal? Or will you become a better human being? So really, that's the benefit of becoming an entrepreneur, is you really find out who you are when you don't have anything. So you always have to look at the big picture. Too many people look at, well, what's going to happen to me? When you look at the big picture, you're also going to know that when something bad happens, something good's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But you got to prepare for whatever is coming. If you think next 20 years will be like the last 20 years, you're going to get creamed. When you and I go to the supermarket and we buy a carton of milk, we always check for the expiration date. But most people do not check for the expiration date on their brains. Instead of get out of debt, I get into debt. I just refinanced $300 million in debt. I went from 5% to 2.5% interest. I made a fortune. Every month, more money comes in because my cost of money has gone down. So while some financial experts are saying get out of debt, I'm saying learn how to use debt. So when I came back from in Vietnam in January of '73, the first thing my rich dad said to me was go to school to learn how to invest in real estate. It wasn't real estate, it was how to use debt and taxes. Debt and taxes make the rich richer. Debt and taxes make the poor and middle class poorer. So all the rich guys who are doctors and lawyers or, those guys, they're getting creamed. They don't know why.
Doctors are getting creamed.
Oh, yeah, they're making more money, but the take home is less.
Sure.
My doctor just yelled at me. He's happy. He says, "Oh, guess what? I finally made $1 million." And I said, "Yeah, because this was just 3 weeks ago." And so I said, "Yeah, well, how much you pay in tax?" He says, $750,000 in taxes. So his net was about $400,000. That's not bad. But when I make $1 million, I keep $1 million. And the reason is because I don't make it by working for money. See, if you work for money, you're taxed. So that's why lesson number one in Rich Dad Poor Dad is the rich don't work for money. What we do instead is we create businesses as entrepreneurs. We acquire real estate. I don't want to invest in the stock market. So the reason is because as entrepreneurs, I have more control over my income, how much I make, and how much I pay in taxes. And because I'm an entrepreneur as well as an investor in real estate, I pay zero tax. So every time I make, let's say, $1 million as an entrepreneur, I immediately invest it in real estate and have a 4-to-1 step up. So I put $1 million in real estate, I get $4 million from the bank. That's why I love banks. But the banks are screwing everybody else. Terrible, but it's good for me.
That's why you said when you print, it's good for you, but when you print, it's bad for people that work for money.
Because when you print, savers get creamed and people who work for money get creamed. When they print, debtors get rich. You see, debt and taxes make the rich richer, and debt and taxes make the poor middle class poorer. When we have obsolete ideas, we get obsolete results. So what's happening for most people, the idea of going to school, getting a job, working hard, saving money, getting out of debt, buying your house because it's an asset, and investing for the long term, is obsolete. The world has changed. The world changed in 1971 when President Nixon took us off the gold standard and money became debt.
What if we get rid of school? Then what would happen? Would it be better if we had no educational system at all?
No, I'm saying education is more important before. It's just obsolete. There's Moore's Law which states information doubles every 18 months. In other words, everything's obsolete 18 months. So, and this is just a recent phenomenon. So when you come out of school, you're already obsolete. And that's why I'm the old guy, I meet my friends who went to Harvard. I went to Harvard. I said, yeah, that was how long, 50 years ago? Today, the banks are charging you interest to save money. In other words, banks don't want your money because they printed too much of it. And that's why there's these bubbles in stocks and bubbles in real estate and all this. People are dumping the cash. Because as I said in here, savers are losers and cash is trash. And yet people, I want a high-paying job. Well, that's an obsolete idea. Get out of debt is an obsolete idea. You should learn how to get into debt, how to use debt to get rich. And they'll never teach you about taxes. The reason the 1% is way up here and the 99% are going this way is because when you print money, two things happen: inflation and taxes. It's crushing it. And any entrepreneur thinks, I'm just going to make money, I'm going to start a business and make a lot of money because that's what we talk about. They really have got to smell the roses, man. That's not what the real entrepreneurs are doing. Most entrepreneurs, there's 28 million small business owners in America. 24 million are what are one-person entrepreneurs. They're called non-employee entrepreneurs. So and that's what happens is when people don't really understand what an entrepreneur does. So most big people are self-employed, but they're not really entrepreneurs. The self-employed pay the highest taxes of all. Nobody tells them that. Yeah, it's also called the entrepreneurial spirit. But what we were actually talking about was there's no such thing as a bad economy. There's the external, you and I, we all have an external economy, but we also have an internal economy. And the willpower is to change our internal economy. So for me, I can see the good and I can see the bad. I don't really give a damn because I'm going to be rich anyway. But a poor person with a poor personal economy all they're going to see is a bad economy because they don't know how to make money in any economy. And a middle class person, they have a middle class economy. You know, what they want is a nice house, a steady paycheck, and a job, and a car. And so when you take their job away, to them, that's disaster. Well, since an entrepreneur doesn't have a job anyway, it's no big deal. So all I'm saying to people, and it's what Bucky Fuller taught me, is always two sides, you know what I mean? You know, to use plural, at minimum two. So if you think the economy is bad, it's because your economy is bad. If you think that steady, employment is important, then you'll see an economy without jobs. Your economy versus the external economy.
Where you control it, where you can't.
I can control. Yeah, it's called an internal focus versus an external focus. So the real entrepreneur has an internal focus. That if they fall down, they say, "Oh, this is good, because I'm going to go up higher." You know, the average person will fall down and say, "Oh, I'm going to take some Prozac." Or when somebody has a mistake, "Oh, the mistakes don't matter." Well, mistakes matter. It means you didn't know something. But a real entrepreneur, whether they fall down, they always can go up. They can stand back up and go higher. And no matter what happens to them, they get stronger and better and smarter and happier. But a person with a weak internal mindset is that they're so afraid of what happens, it generally happens. Like, people who are afraid of losing their jobs, they generally lose their jobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So you can
control you.
Yeah, so the entrepreneur first job is to control inside here, not outside there. The moment you take that paycheck, you're an employee. You've got to be stronger than that. It's about inside control.
I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, "There is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living." Now, I'm sure in your experiences in school and applying to college and picking your major and deciding what you want to do with life, I'm sure people have told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. Make sure you got something to fall back on, honey. But I never understood that concept, having something to fall back on. If I'm going to fall, are just dreams. Reggie Jackson struck out 2,600 times in his career, the most in the history of baseball. But you don't hear about the strikeouts. People remember the home runs. Fall forward. Thomas Edison conducted 1,000 failed experiments. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Because the 1,001st was the light bulb. Fall forward. Every failed experiment is one